Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. We are diving into something I think everybody can relate to, usability, how easy things are to use.
hmm
You sent over a research paper with a very provocative title, Is Usability a Dead End?
Yeah, it's a good one.
It really is. So we're going to break that down today, and I have to say, it's a pretty bold question to ask. It really got me thinking about all those frustrating apps and gadgets and websites and everything that I've wrestled with over the years.
It's a good question, and I think it's timely too, right?
Right.
Like it's not just some theoretical debate happening in a vacuum. This affects all of us in our daily lives.
Right?
I mean, think about everything we interact with, from a simple coffee maker to complex medical devices, heck, even robots.
Yeah, it's everything.
Everything.
And this paper by Simone Borsci really throws down the gauntlet. I mean, they come right out of the gate swinging, saying that the standard definition of usability, the one from ISO 924111, is just too broad. It's like trying to define good music. Everyone has their own taste. So are they right? Is usable just too vague to be meaningful?
Well, the paper actually pushes back against the idea that usability is a lost cause. They say that this broadness can actually be a good thing because it means the concept can apply to pretty much anything.
So instead of one definition of usable, we need like a whole bunch of them.
That's exactly what's happening.
Wow.
There are at least 54 different ISO standards that all build on that basic usability definition, each one tailored for a specific type of product.
Oh, wow.
So it really is like a giant usability tree. The core definition is the trunk, and then all these branches for different applications. So imagine like standards for software, standards for ships, even standards for playground equipment.
Okay, a usability tree. I like that visual. But why do we need all these branches? I mean, isn't easy to use pretty much the same for everything? Like, what's the big deal?
Not necessarily. So for example, there's ISO 25010 for software. It adds things like freedom from risk and how well the software works in different contexts. Because, a glitch in your email is very different from a glitch in a self-driving car.
Right, very different.
And then there's ISO 62366, which focuses on medical devices. That one integrates risk management into usability, because a usable medical device has to be safe above all else. And then you have ISO 23282 for everyday things, which focuses mainly on effectiveness because, we don't need a whole risk assessment to figure out if a can opener is usable.
Right. Right. So it's like usable means different things depending on the context. Like
Yeah.
a website, a scalpel, and a children's toy all have really different implications if they're not well designed, right?
Right. And that's actually where it gets interesting for you, the listener. What kind of products do you use the most, right? Think about how usable might actually mean different things for those products. What's most important? Is it safety? Is it efficiency? Or is it something else entirely?
That's a great question for everybody listening out there. And it makes me wonder if these varying definitions are part of the reason why there's so much debate about usability in the first place. Like, is it possible we're all talking about slightly different things when we say usable?
That's a really sharp observation. And it leads right into the second issue the paper brings up. A lot of the research on usability actually gets inconsistent results. So one study might show a really strong link between how efficient a product is and how much users like it, while another study finds no link at all.
Oh, wow.
It's like trying to compare cake recipes where one uses cups and the other uses grams.
Yeah.
Good luck getting consistent results.
You're going to have a bad time. So even when researchers are looking at the same type of product, they're not always on the same page. That's frustrating. No wonder there's so much confusion. What does the paper say about that?
They actually blame inconsistent methods and poor reporting in a lot of these studies. Basically, the researchers aren't always measuring and describing things the same way.
So maybe it's not that usability is a flawed concept, but that we're not studying it in a consistent way?
That's a real possibility. It's like trying to bake cookies, but each recipe has different units of measurement, and different instructions. You're going to end up with vastly different cookies, even if the ingredients are the same.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Inconsistent cookies are a tragedy. So what's the solution? Do we need to go back to square one and redefine everything?
Well, the paper suggests something pretty interesting. What if we created standardized guidelines for reporting usability studies?
Okay.
Almost like a recipe template,
A recipe template for research. I love that.
Yeah, so everyone is measuring things the same way and reporting their results in a really clear, consistent manner.
Yeah.
So it's easier to compare.
So that makes a lot of sense. It makes me think about the medical field, They have guidelines like Consort and CoreEQ, which have helped standardize how medical research is reported.
Yes. And those guidelines have made a big difference in the quality and reliability of medical research. There's no reason why the usability field couldn't do the same thing.
So maybe we're not ready to throw usability out with the bathwater just yet. There's hope for a more standardized and rigorous approach.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
Exactly. And think about what that could mean for all of us. You know, if we had a more reliable way to measure usability, maybe we could finally get rid of those clunky websites, those
Yeah.
frustrating apps, all those products that seem designed to drive us crazy.
Okay, now I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. But let's be realistic. The paper does mention that this isn't going to be a quick fix.
Right.
Like creating those guidelines and getting everyone on board, I mean, that's a big task.
You're absolutely right. It's not going to happen overnight. But I think the fact that we're having this conversation, that researchers are acknowledging these problems and looking for solutions, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
It shows that the field is maturing. And maybe, just maybe, we're moving towards a future where the things we use every day are not just functional, but truly well-designed.
That's a future I can get behind. But from your perspective, what are some of the biggest hurdles to making that happen? I mean, aside from the whole herding cats problem.
One of the biggest challenges is simply the diversity of the field. We have researchers and practitioners coming from all sorts of backgrounds: psychology, engineering, design, human factors.
Right.
And each discipline brings its own methods and ways of thinking.
Yeah.
So getting everyone to agree on one set of standards,
Right.
that's a huge undertaking.
It's like trying to get the UN to agree on something. And on top of that, you need funding for this research, right? I mean, usability studies can be pretty expensive.
That's another big hurdle.
Yeah.
You can't just do like a quick online survey and call it a day. You need to carefully design the tasks, recruit the right participants, collect and analyze data.
Right.
It all adds up.
Yeah. And we can't forget about the role of industry. I mean,
Yeah.
companies have a huge stake in usability, but sometimes it feels like they prioritize speed and cutting costs over actually doing the research.
Absolutely. And
Right.
that can lead to products that technically work, but are just a nightmare to actually use.
Oh, we've all been there.
We've all been there.
Yeah, we definitely have. But, as we've been talking, something else has been bugging me, something that the paper doesn't really address. It's this whole idea of subjective experience. Usability isn't just about how fast you can complete a task. It's also about how you feel when you're using a product.
That's a really important point. It's about that sense of satisfaction.
Right.
Or even delight that comes from using a well-designed product.
Exactly. But how do you measure that? How do you quantify delight or frustration? It seems so subjective.
It's one of the biggest challenges in the field. And it's
Yeah.
something that, user experience UX designers grapple with all the time.
Right.
They're trying to move beyond just efficiency and effectiveness and really try to understand how products make us feel.
Because a product can be perfectly usable in the sense that it's easy to learn, efficient to use. But if it's ugly or annoying, no one's going to want to use it. There's more to it than just checking boxes on a usability checklist.
Exactly. And that brings in questions about aesthetics,
Right.
emotion,
Yeah.
even cultural values.
Yeah.
It gets really complex.
So maybe usable isn't just a technical problem to solve. It's a human one.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's why it's so important to keep having these conversations, to keep pushing the boundaries of what we consider usable and how we measure it.
It feels like we're at a turning point, We started with this question, is usability a dead end? And I think we've come to the conclusion that it's definitely not dead. It's just exactly. And it's up to all of us, researchers, designers, and everyday users like you listening right now, to help shape that evolution.
And that brings us to a really crucial point. You're not just a passive observer in all of this. As you go about your day, interacting with all these products and systems, think about the role you play in shaping the future of usability.
So we're not just stuck with whatever companies decide is usable. We actually have a voice in this.
Absolutely. You're not just a consumer, you're a user.
Mm.
And your experiences, your frustrations, even your moments of delight, they all matter.
Mm.
Every time you use a product, you're generating data. You're forming opinions. You're contributing to this ongoing conversation about what makes for a good user experience.
It's like we're all part of this massive usability experiment.
Exactly. And the more we can articulate those experiences, the more we can push for better design. It's not just about complaining. It's about being mindful, noticing what works and what doesn't, and sharing those insights with the people who actually create the products we use.
So how do we do that? I mean, aside from leaving a scathing review on the App Store.
There are all sorts of ways you can provide feedback when companies ask for it. Talk to your friends about the products you love and, why you love them. Support companies that prioritize good design. Even something as simple as telling a customer service representative about a frustrating experience, they can make a difference.
So it's almost like we're all usability advocates now.
In a way, yeah, we are. And remember, this isn't just about making our lives a little easier. Good design can have a huge impact on accessibility, safety, even sustainability.
Okay, wow. We really went deep on this one. We started with this provocative question. Is usability a dead end? And I think we can safely say the answer is a resounding bleving. No, usability is alive and well. It's just evolving.
I agree. And the best part is that we all have a role to play in shaping that evolution.
So to wrap things up, if you had the power to change one thing about the way products are designed, what would it be? What little tweak, what innovative feature, what fundamental shift in thinking could make our interactions with technology more seamless, more enjoyable, more human?
That's a great question to ponder. As you go about your week, as you're noticing those moments of frustration and delight, keep those usability conversations going.
And keep diving deep. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of ideas.